shocking betrayal. I arrived at my son's workplace desperate for family support, but his colleague seized my arm and hissed urgently, "Don't sign a thing. Just run now." I darted out the rear exit, and within moments, my phone erupted with 42 missed calls. Before we dive deeper, please subscribe to the channel and drop in the comments what the time is in your corner of the world right now. The front door burst inward without mercy. Alexander stormed in, his face drained of color. Gripping wadded documents that fluttered in his unsteady grasp, my evening teacup tumbled from my fingers, crashing against the polished hardwood floor. "Dad, it's finished. The FBI might raid any second." Papers flew across my coffee table like leaves caught in a gale. Bank records, court summonses, crimson deficits stark against pristine sheets. Alexander's tailored suit sagged in folds, his impeccable hair now a wild tangle. He resembled a fugitive haunted by shadows. "Slow down, son," I murmured, folding my newspaper and extending a hand. "What on earth has happened?" 1.8 million? He choked out. The figure struck me like a hammer blow. I observed my son stalk my humble living room, a beast in confinement. His polished loafers tapped sharply on the oak planks. The soft glow from the lamp, once a source of comfort, now etched stark lines over his hollowed cheeks. The accusations. Alexander yanked another sheet from his coat, his grip so fierce the print swam before my eyes. Wire fraud involving client records, laundering funds via phantom firms, breaches of federal banking statutes, stock manipulation, evasion of taxes, charges of racketeering collusion, digital intrusion and misuse. Each allegation landed like a verdict from the grave. Alexander's tone faded to a hush with every term until he scarcely breathed the words. The antique clock on the mantel tolled in the heavy quiet. "Son, you'll overcome this. You've always carved a path forward. Overcome it." Alexander whirled on me, gaze feral. "Dad, they've seized it all. Transaction logs, message threads, coded exchanges. They've shadowed us for seasons." I stretched toward his shoulder, the same comforting touch from his boyhood fears. Alexander swatted it aside with such force I staggered back. "You ought to act, not spout platitudes. I grasp nothing of your fiscal webs. I can't assist in any way." "Of course not," Alexander sneered, his laugh sharp and empty. "As I forged a dynasty, you buried yourself in newsprint and sipped your brew. While I amassed fortunes, you lingered in this relic of a home." The barbs cut deeper than any strike. I glanced at my surroundings, the faded armchair for bedtime tales, the mantel lined with snapshots of brighter days, the drapes stitched by my departed wife decades past, all that Alexander dismissed as defeat. "When I was young, you instilled values of truth, honor, choosing right over ease." Alexander's words twisted venomous. "But truth doesn't cover bills, honor buys no esteem, and righteousness earns a modest retirement and a crumbling abode." "Alexander, stop, please." He swept the last sheets from the table in fury. "I craved a father versed in commerce, one to chart these treacherous waters. Instead, I endured sermons on virtue while rivals inherited fortunes and networks." The aroma of my forgotten coffee thickened the rift between us. Beyond the panes, Chicago's March gales battered the frames. Alexander loomed in the threshold, backlit by the hall's gleam. "Come morning, I'll mend this alone, as I've mended all else while you basked in your virtuous simplicity." The door crashed shut with violence that rattled the family portraits on their hooks. Through the glass, I watched Alexander's sleek sedan vanish, its crimson taillights swallowed by the nocturnal veil. The strewn files encircled my feet like relics of an unspeakable offense. I collapsed into my armchair amid the debris of my son's transformation. The vehicle's rumble dissolved into Chicago's ceaseless murmur. I stooped with effort, my aging joints groaning, collecting the chaos with quivering fingers. Statements of accounts, judicial filings, figures alien to my engineer's logic. The ragged margins pricked my weathered skin. In the galley, I brewed coffee more from ritual than want. The methodical steps scooping grounds, pouring water. Activating the machine calmed my tremors. Yet my thoughts looped on Alexander's visage, that raw frenzy I'd never witnessed. When did cruelty eclipse his spirit? That child once envisioning a transformed world. The brew bubbled as I hauled a cherished album to my den. Dust swirled in the lamp's beam as I unveiled a page from 2012. There stood Alexander at 29, eyes alight with promise, beside his inaugural office plaque. The DataGuard Innovations emblem dwarfed the cramped lease behind it. We're set to transform secure transaction protocols. Dad. His echo rang in my mind. Firms bleed billions to digital bandits yearly. We'll stand as their sentinels. I recalled the fresh carpeting scent, the shuffle of crates unpacked. Alexander toiled 16-hour shifts, fueled by takeout and resolve. My son, the innovator, I boasted to acquaintances. Subsequent images chronicled swift ascent, expansive suites, swelling staff, Alexander gracing trade journals. Yet by 2015, a subtle fracture emerged. The captures altered accordingly. Scarcer kin reunions. More isolated frames with unfamiliar associates. 2017 ushered the initial veiled exchange. Alexander alluded to an overseas patron. An intricate arrangement he evaded detailing, probing further. He'd deflect. The intricacies would elude you, Dad. About then surfaced the lavish chronometer. The luxury coupe supplanting his sensible sedan, bespoke attire overtaking standard garb, querying the abrupt affluence. Alexander merely grinned. Ventures thrive. Dad. Exceptionally so. I turned to Yuletide 2015, our final untroubled festivity. Alexander beamed then, slicing fowl amid jests. What eclipsed that soul when did triumph morph into the abyss, drawing federal scrutiny? The album's visions hazed as weariness encroached. My coffee chilled as I juxtaposed yesteryear's Alexander against tonight's frantic apparition. The lad who'd crafted miniature spans in my cellar had evolved into one scorning candor as frailty. Out of doors. March winds wailed through skeletal limbs. The dwelling sighed with accustomed groans. I drifted to trifling recollections: Alexander's university commencement, his debut enterprise accolade, the glow in his stare unveiling that pioneer workspace. Had I shortchanged him? Ought I to have delved deeper into his realm, bolstered his drives more vigorously? The tenets of engineering I'd imparted exactitude, uprightness. Erecting enduring works appeared quaint in his shadowed domain. My brow weighed heavy. The volume dipped in my hold as slumber neared. My final glimpse was Alexander's from that holiday portrait, youthful and buoyant, worlds apart from the terror-stricken figure who'd fled into the gloom. The telephone's piercing wail roused me at 7:30 a.m. My neck throbbed from the awkward vigil in the seat. The album tumbled as I groped toward the scullery, disoriented by hour and haven. Dad, head to the firm immediately. Alexander's timbre blasted prior to my greeting. I clutched the handset nearer, fogged from the restless repose. What's transpired? Why the haste? Details await your arrival. The chauffeur's en route. Chauffeur Alexander, what's this? Resolution unfolds presently. Trust me. All right, 10 minutes tops. The connection severed. I gaped at the mute device. Alexander's frenzy lingering. His cadence raced. Phrases overlapping like a soul racing against the clock. In my chamber, I snatched attire swiftly: slacks, a collared blouse, my stoutest coat. March in Chicago brooked no scant layers. My mirror reflected an elder with tousled locks and anxious orbs, a figure ensnared in enigmas beyond ken. Should I summon aid Edward Harlan, my counsel companion? Yet Alexander's assurance rang fervent, his plea for swift motion overriding delay. Procrastination felt untenable. From the bay window, I surveyed the serene cul-de-sac. Most folk had departed for labors. The Whitaker abode loomed dim, the Langford garage void. Evanston's dawn hush enveloped me like a shroud on the verge of rupture. A ebony limousine materialized at the bend, gliding with intent along my lane. Not Alexander's coupe. This vessel loomed grander, more stately, with obscured panes mirroring the leaden vault. Executive, grave, the mark of dealings I couldn't fathom. The motor's subdued purr intensified as it neared. My gut knotted with passing ticks. Alexander had orchestrated this overnight, scheming as I slumbered amid strewn proofs and waning reveries. The auto halted precisely at my path. No blasts, no frantic signals, merely poised vigil. Through the shaded foreglass, the operator's outline scarcely registered. The instant pulsed, orchestrated, authoritative, akin to breaching a realm unfit for veteran draftsmen. I patted my pouch for billfold and fobs once more. The house key's heft struck oddly portentous, as though it might soon prove obsolete. The notion chilled my blood. At the portal, I lingered with palm on latch. Alexander's prior utterance resounded. "Come dawn, I'll rectify solo." Was this his remedy? A scheme demanding his sire's immersion in the tempest he'd unleashed. March chill slapped my cheeks upon egress. Chicago's winter scorned dithering. The ebony limousine idled, engine thrumming, vapor trailing in the frost. Ere doubt could resurface, the forward portal yawned from inside. Plush hides cradled me in unforeseen coziness. The steersman proved younger than anticipated rigid stance. Cropped mane, optics seasoned beyond my span. His badge proclaimed Nathan Brooks. "Nathan, what's unfolded at the Enterprise? Beyond my purview, sir." His inflection held the clipped precision of drilled obedience. "Not further." We departed my tranquil suburb. Evanston's verdant avenues yielded to thronged arteries en route to the Eisenhower Expressway. I ventured anew. Alexander appeared utterly rattled last eve. Is the peril so dire? Nathan tweaked his mirror. "Mum's the word, sir." The freeway unfurled. Downtown Chicago's spires swelled with each kilometer. Faceted monoliths snared the dawn rays, echoing a metropolis eternally vigilant. Vehicular streams coursed in rhythmic flows, wage earners bound for vocations inscrutable to me. Existences grazing hours fleetingly ere parting, long in Alexander's employ, briefly. Nathan wove adroitly into brisker lanes. His palms stayed firm at 10 and 2, polished as a silver screen lackey. I ceased prying for discourse via shaded glass. I beheld Chicago's metamorphosis from domiciliary enclaves to mercantile zones. The tuner murmured faintly bulletins on climb, congestion, governance remote from our maelstrom. My chronometer marked 8:45 upon immersion in the urban chasm. Foot travelers surged with resolve on pavements, swathed against frost yet resolute. Vapor ascended from grates like civic springs. All throbbed with exigency, vitality absent from my Evanston repose. The limousine veered onto Wacker Drive, aligning with a 38-story crystalline edifice piercing the slate March firmament. Plaza Cascades lay iced, their frozen artistry refracting beams like gems. Suited elites streamed by in lavish wraps, murmuring into mobiles or scanning slates. Here we are. Nathan slotted impeccably into a designated berth. Within the atrium, veined marble shone beneath vaulted domes. A sentinel station presided centrally, staffed by wardens akin to ex-enforcers. Gallery flanks bore abstract canvases rivaling my yearly stipend. Mr. Bain awaits in suite 1823. The warden proffered a guest tag sans scrutiny. He recognized me. The lift ascended layers of enterprise ethos. Through crystalline barriers, I spied boardrooms, partitioned hives, chambers boasting vista sweeps, all proclaimed prosperity. Capital coursing in channels opaque to my drafting tenure. 19th level. The portals parted to muted wool and stark fluorescence. Data guard innovations crests adorned glazed cubicles where souls keyed terminals, conferred via earpieces, pulsed with the restrained vigor of a flourishing venture. Suite 1823 nestled at the passage's terminus, via the translucent barrier. Alexander's form and another's hovered by panoramic panes. Their discourse seeped through, fervent, with Alexander's arcs emphatic. My grasp met the latch. Whatever peril summoned me, whatever balm Alexander sought, I stood prepared to aid my heir by any measure. The barrier yielded to Alexander mid-phrase, flailing at arrayed folios on a parley slab. He pivoted, countenance aglow with solace so authentic my strain softened. Dad, you're our enterprise's redeemer. Alexander surged forth, enfolding me with a lad's zeal unveiling stellar marks. His embrace gripped sturdy across my back, his scent costly and evocative. The prior night's spectre yielded to one assured, nigh exultant. At last, clarity arrives. We'll unravel it all forthwith. Alexander ushered me to the parley slab where parchments stacked tidily. Merely endorse these forms. It's reallocating holdings to your ledger for fiscal perks. The chamber exuded triumph rosewood bureau, hide perches, accolades blanketing a flank like spoils. Beyond vast expanses, Chicago sprawled unbound. Framed dispatches depicted Alexander clasping dignitaries, claiming laurels in commerce rags. Dad, behold Victor Langford, my venture ally. The figure by the panes rotated, proffering his palm with reluctance. Victor seemed uneasy, swaying heel to toe, shirking gaze lock, his clasp chilled. Remote. Mr. Bain. Victor's salutation strained, ceremonial. Victor's aided in reshaping our fiscal frame. Alexander seated me at the slab, folios splayed like dealt hands. These accords shield kin holdings amid transient liquidity snags. The charters loomed formal letterheads, imperial, manifold endorsement folios, prose thick with arcana beyond my lexicon. Alexander had arrayed opulent styluses at key junctures, primed for ascent. This strikes intricate for mere conveyance. Contemporary trade demands bold remedies. Alexander's chuckle rang contrived upon closer heed. Have faith, Dad. When have I misled? Victor fidgeted anew by the pane, glancing his timepiece. His demeanor irked me, his sidestep from our exchange, the rigidity in his frame, his evident yen for flight. I lifted a charter, straining to decipher juridical cipher akin to ancient script. Terms like figurehead steward and singular accountability leapt forth, yet their weave eluded. A brisk rap halted my perusal. Olivia Grant, a poised lass in vocation garb, breached sans summons. Mr. Bain, an imperative line awaits. Alexander's poise wavered fleetingly ere rebounding. Can't it linger? We're immersed. It's the Wabash Avenue crisis. They insist now. Naturally, Alexander clasped my deltoid. Avuncular, the devoted sire navigating kin peril. Dad, peruse the accords. I'll return shortly. Mere instants. The barrier sealed after Alexander and Olivia, their murmurs receding corridorward. Abruptly, the chamber shifted stiller, tauter. Victor lingered painside, but his carriage altered. His pain reflection betrayed inner strife. I seized the nearest stylus toward endorsement voids. Whatever these tomes housed, they'd buoy my son through his venture gale. Post 4 decades of drafting rigor, endorsing for kin succor seemed elementary. The implement weighed unduly in my digits, Victor's palm lunged, snaring my cuff as the nib grazed vellum. Halt. Refrain from endorsing. Flee this place. The fervor in his plea iced my veins. Folios scattered as I recoiled, the stylus clanging earthward. What do you mean? Your heir aims to shunt all encumbrances and penal burdens onto you. Victor's torrent rushed desperate. These accords render you figurehead steward and singularly accountable for 1.8 million in arrears. My realm careened. The refined chamber. The fond reunion. Alexander's assured clasp all morphed to scenic facades in a grand charade. That's inconceivable. He's my blood. This instant, federal agents scour a satellite outpost. You've scant 4 minutes to vanish. Victor jabbed the folios with quaking digits. Scan folio 2. Retroactive pacts deeming you liable for all. The leaves swam as I strained. They're nested, veiled in legalese. Singular duty stipends. Fiscal shunt clauses. Endorsement voids that would recast me from pensioned drafter to national felon. He orchestrated this. The murmur escaped faint. My own progeny plotted my undoing. Alexander's woven this web across moons, the venture plight, the frantic summons, luring you hither all staged meticulously. Victor darted doorward, ear cocked for treads, though it might cost him all. Why aid me? I refuse to witness an untainted soul ensnared, even at my ruin. What of Alexander's reprisal? We'll fret that anon. Now, you must evaporate ere Federals seal this spire. Victor guided me via an overlooked flank portal into utility veins reeking of stark cleansers. Hazard beams hurled stark umbras on cement flanks. Our souls reverberated in the constricted void. Utility hoist to Undercroft. Egress on Michigan Avenue, not Wacker. 19 levels of utility risers yawned beneath. My limbs, frail from jolt, rebelled per tread. Iron balusters chilled my clasp. Victor shadowed, sporadically querying his slate for dispatches. Alexander will discern your hand. Perchance, yet I'll weather the fallout. Victor's timbre bore somber resolve. What gnaws is muting as he unravels his begetter? 12 levels, 9. My breaths labored, perspiration mingling with March's subterranean bite. Each descent distanced me from Alexander's snare. Neared uncharted tomorrows. Should you crave affidavits, proofs, aught, summon me. Victor slipped a cart into my palsied palm. But tread warily. Alexander's schemes persist. 4 levels. 2. The Undercroft portal gleamed via hazard egress solely. Victor paused at the brink. I must reintegrate, lest Alexander surmise. My gratitude. The phrase paled against his peril. I'll cherish this. Endure. Mr. Bain. That's recompense ample. Michigan Avenue's march. Zephyr scorched my lungs like deliverance incarnate. Throngs parted, unwitting of the snare I'd eluded. Astern, the crystalline spire clawed the slate vault, cradling arcana that nigh raised my 70 labors of upright toil. My slate hummed. 42 oversights from Alexander. He'd fathomed my flight. Michigan Avenue's March Zephyr seared my lungs as I lurched from the edifice. Limbs quaking from 19 cement descents. Astern, the crystalline spire clawed the slate march vault, cradling arcana that nigh raised me. My slate hummed. Alexander, inaugural oversight. Mr. Bain. I wheeled to spy Victor surfacing the selfsame portal. Gasping. Dew beaded despite the freeze. He cast wary to the edifice, then clutched my elbow. Ascend these risers to the sub-level. An egress to Michigan awaits. And you I must reintegrate. Lest suspicion dawn. Victor's martial poise masked scant dread. Alexander gleans your absence in heartbeats. Perchance fewer. My slate quivered anew. Oversight too. How long this machination, the query fractured. Vanquished. Moons. but like epochs. Victor eyed his chronometer. Then the ingress. Those accords tailored for you, retroactive endorsements, fiscal reroutes, all to crown you the architect. The betrayal's mass crushed my breast tangible. As I'd fretted my heir's venture woes, he directed an ornate djinn to obliterate me. Seek jurists, you bear the proofs. Victor urged a cart into my quivering palm. His private lines scrawled verso in azure. Will safety cloak you more than you this nonce? His mirth rang hollow. Alexander's frantic. He'll essay all remorse feints, menaces, wiles, shun his summons. Oversight 3, 4. The tremors stung my thigh like live wires. Should tribunals arise, I'll attest. I'll unveil all accord forging. Chronology, his aims. Victor's timbre weighed with irrevocable choice. 9 cycles erecting this alliance, and I cast it for a near stranger. Why my lass counts 9 winters, and one dawn I yearned to meet her gaze, knowing I chose aright when stakes loomed. Downtown Chicago swirled us. Lavish vestments hastened by. Cab klaxons, the civic chorus heedless of solitary woes. We 2 males conversed curbside, phantoms amid multitudes. Oversight 5, 6, 7, he's fraying. Victor nodded to my quivering slate. Apartment. Frey yields heirs. What heirs those aiding indicters in case-weaving? Victor proffered his palm for valedictory clasp. Recall, you fled aided by an insider from his fold. That sways benches and panels. I beheld Victor vanish into the edifice via alternate ingress, like conjuring some spurious task. The crystalline portals engulfed him as jaws sealing, stranding me solitary on Michigan with a slate unceasing in hum. Oversight 8, 9, 10. The multitude bore me along ordained trails, folk with duties summoning, conclaves pending, spans coherent. I drifted spectral through their tangible realm, laden with proofs of offenses I scarce comprehended fully. By Oversight 16, my digits quaked too fiercely to clasp the slate. By 21, I muted it, beholding the pain flare recurrent like a distress flare of my heir's plight. The cab rank lay 3 avenues distant. Astern, the Enterprise edifice shrank yet lingered omnipresent. Somewhere in that pinnacle, Alexander unearthed his ornate snare foiled. His begetter fled bearing proofs to unmake him instead. Oversight 26, 27. The pain displayed Alexander's with relentless rote. My digit poised o'er the rebuff as Alexander's glowered, indicting. Oversight 28. I rebuffed, and forthwith another chimed. 29. The unyielding cycle turned torment psychic. Cab, a golden hackney drew curbside, its pilot eyeing me with vocation worry. My digits fumbled the latch amid dawn's vigor overtaking my 70 frame. Whither? Sir 150 Whacker Drive. And with haste, if you will. You seem distressed. Sir. Oversight 30. 31. The slate kindled mute in my lap like some cyber pulse. Kin strife. The epoch's grand understatement. Chicago's dawn crawl inked stubborn via civic lanes. Each halt stretched eternal. Each lag another chance for Alexander to trail me. The pilot tendered flask from dash stores, kerchiefs from a console sheaf, trifling mercies vast in my flux. Oversight 32. I essayed the postscripts at last. Dad, a muddle arose. Victor misconstrues trade. Return, let's mend. His timbre feigned care. The lilt of youth post-mischief craving clemency. The guile so flawless it roiled my innards. Oversight 34. Fresh postscript. You're courting vast folly. Those accords aren't as he spun. Now, urgency laced his timbre. The poised helm cracking. Via the hackney's casements. I viewed Chicago quarters glide like tableau from alien spans. The drafting hall of my 3-decade tenure. The bistro where Alexander and I toasted his premier pact. The green where I'd schooled him in pitch. Each marker now tainted by cognizance of his metamorphosis. Oversight 36. Postscript anew. I'm your heir. How credit aliens o'er kin, the Gaul astounded. He'd schemed to pin national offenses on his begetter, then dared query my fealty to blood. I drew the slate portraits of accords, scrutinizing amid jams. Sans juridical lore. My name studded myriad leaves. Endorsement voids bespoke for me. Dates deeming me enmeshed in choices unknown. You fathom not the strife you're birthing for us twain. Oversight 39 bore alien hue. The facade frayed. Beneath sham solicitude and wile lurked chill calculus. This was the timbre of one who'd spun moons plotting my fall. Irked his quarry had slipped. The hackney wheeled onto Whacker. Nearing the locus, Edward Harlan had imparted cycles past upon launching his solo writ, a unpretentious pile beside Alexander's pinnacle, yet emblematic of what his sphere had forsaken earnest toil for earnest wage. Here, I settled the toll, appending lavish gratuity for his forbearance and heed. Farewell, sir. Whatsoever unfolds, may fortune favor. Oversight 39 marked the finale. My slate hushed as I fronted the writ edifice, gazing panes vowing refuge from cyber barrage. 42 summons in 80 heartbeats, numeric testament to Alexander's unraveling. The edifice ledger listed Edward Harlan, writ master, on the 6th tier. As the hoist ascended, I marshaled my mind's tumult. How voice to a comrade that one's air morphed monstrosity. How plead aid when foe bears your nomenclature and vain. The hoist chimed faint at tier 6, corridor down. Beyond a portal etched humbly, loomed freighted replies I scarce craved. The writ chamber wafted of tanned tomes and robust roast, redolent scents from spans where terms held sharp intent, and equity transcended notion. Edward Harlan glanced from his rostrum, fret etching his lined brow as he essayed my rumpled guise. Reginald, this eclipses gravity. We'd companioned 35 cycles. Yet never his mien thus vocation I fused with kin guardianship. How dire the eclipse, had you endorsed. You'd shoulder all venture arrears and penal tallies. 12 to 18 cycles incarcerated. The tally smote corporal. 18 cycles. At 70. That spelled perishing endurance for offenses uncommitted. Undone by the heir I'd reared to prize candor or gain. Your heir deploys retroactive pacts. Legally, you'd retro-emerge as co-steward from yesteryear. Edward's digit traced script lines on his pane, unveiling clauses that would have deemed me arbiter of choices wrought as I perused gazettes in my salon. He spun this across moons, per these timestamps and craft. Aye, this bloom's not o'ernight. Edward reclined, vocation ire emanating. Reginald, across 35 cycles of writ, this crowns the bleakest guile I've beheld. My mug chilled as Edward unpacked the gears Alexander had primed. Singular vows that would have yoked my abode and hoards to venture arrears. Entity shifts positioning me as decree weaver for all wire guiles, fund launders, stock breaches. National scribes would crown you the savant, a seasoned drafter wielding craft for arcane fiscal offenses. But fiscal offenses elude me wholly. Irrelevant. These tomes forge a ledger trail of moon's entanglement. Your endorsement would sanctify all retro. Edward summoned national penalty canons on adjunct pain, unveiling white-collar reprisals stark arithmetic. The ciphers pitiless. Fiscal guile bore unyielding floors unyielding to span. Bafflement. Or kinwile. What of the 1.8 million arrears? Singular duty. They'd claim your abode, hoards, stipend, all. Edward's timbre bore writ finality. Your heir blueprinted utter fiscal and penal annihilation. My slate hummed with dispatch, Alexander anew, but Edward raised palm. Shun it, henceforth, all parley routes via me. You're no mere quarry now, you're attestant to assayed guile. The lexical pivot struck pivotal. Quarry evoked impotence. Attestant evoked might. Our course. We strike foremost. Penal plaint against Alexander for assayed guile. Civic writ for assayed fiscal ruin. Bar writ on basis of pursuit. 42 summons tally as stalking per Illinois code. Edward's shift from fretted comrade to martial pleader consummated. This transcended council. It charted strife. Nationals probe the venture's fiscal sins already. Tendering this shifts their saga wholly. Your heir morphs from accused to paramount quarry. Will Victor Langford endure? Will safeguard? His attestation vital, and ward protocols fit such straits. Edward marshaled tomes, birthed sheaves, laid siege foundations for what he deemed conquest assured. His surety quelled my mind's gale, supplanting dread with sentiment absent since the abyss dawned. One caveat, Reginald, when tribunals convene and they shall panels abhor kin treason nigh above all, what your heir essayed breaches not mere national code, it shatters primal equity. I rose to depart. Steadier than since Yesterev's rupture, the tomes nigh my doom now armed my bulwark. The heir who'd schemed my fall had instead yielded proofs of his sins. The hoist portals yawned as I sought the beacon, but my slate chimed ere ingress. Not Alexander this nonce, an alien numeral. My digit hovered o'er the pane, wagering if this heralded boon or novel peril. The hackney drew my lane at 5:45 p.m., and my spirit plunged. Alexander's coupe crouched there predatory, awaiting quarry, gleam fender mirroring the nascent street lamps. He'd lain in ambush, plotting this snare as I conferred with Edward, as I grasped his treason's full arc. Hold the fare, I bade the pilot, then reconsidered. Closure demanded this eve. Alexander emerged from his auto as I cleared the levee, advancing with sham exigency. 4 crushed fags littered near his soles, aberrant for him, token of his realm's dire fray. Dad, at last, I've rung ceaselessly. His guise astounded, creased blouse, shadowed jowl, violet rings neath orbs once ambition bright. The morn's tycoon supplanted by one frantic and feral. Whither vanished, why ghost my rings? I ken your scheme, Alexander. The utterance halted him mid-gate. His sham heed flickered as fractured lumen, yielding to chill reckoning. What scheme I sought to shield you? Shield me. My timbre bore the fortitude Edward's parley had forged. You schemed to crown me your fall guy. Nay. Victor misreads trade. He falsifies to you. Alexander's dread seeped through his feigned helm. I'm your heir. How credit outlanders o'er me. Vicinage drapes stirred in flanking casements. The Whitaker kin athwart feigned postal probe while eavesdropping plain. Our kin's demise turned burrow spectacle. 12 to 18 cycles caged. Alexander, that's your blueprint for me. His visage blanched. The precise lore betokened jurist converse, betokened his wile wholly thwarted. You thankless relic. The facade crumbled absolute. I erected all. You might have borne the brunt. You're aged regardless. The son I sired is extinct. I ken not this stranger. Alexander's knuckles crashed his coupe's bonnet, marring the lavish alloy. The clamor re-echoed the hushed burrow, gloaming like a volley. You deem yourself so immaculate. His timbre swelled to bellow, traversing every stead on the crescent. You eked your paltry, wretched span while I birthed a realm, and when succor beckoned, what rendered you naught? I reared you for candor, for forging perdurable, prizing souls or coin. Candor, Alexander hooted, barren of warmth. Candor yields stipend and a decaying stead in Evanston. I elected triumph. You elected your begetter's ruin. The utterance suspended in March's chill midst us. Astern those terms lurked 42 summons. Moon's intrigue, tomes to pilfer my liberty and span. Astern lay every fond instant shared, now unveiled as groundwork for utmost treason. I crave no begetter denying his heir aid. Alexander's timbre fractured with ire and plight. Crave the quarry roll, so be. Quarry to your writ comrades, to your panels, but fain not my care lingers. I craved not your cares fain, not post this morn. Alexander veered to his auto, then wheeled for parting thrust. Forget kinship, Dad, to me, your Reginald soul. The coupe's motor bellowed superfluous fury. Treads wailed on stone as Alexander reversed my lane. Scarring pavement, I'd mortared myself last vernal. The din faded to Chicago's civic drone, bearing the final tatters of our erst bond. I lingered solitary in my lane, portal fob in palsied grasp, ringed by a kin's rubble forged 34 cycles and one dawn to shatter wholly. The portal weighed unwanted as I thrust it ajar and crossed to my haven's sanctum. The moons from March to April ground with national equities ponder. Nationals concluded their probe, unearthing ampler fiscal anomalies than first unearthed. I attested twice for assize panels, toiled intimate with Edward on writ tactics, and spectated afar as Alexander's realm crumbled. His venture imploded. Holdings iced. Erst allies shunned him as plague-bearer. April 15th dawned with terminus heft. National Hall, Northern District, Illinois, loomed as equity's obelisk in civic Chicago. Veined pillars clawed morn vault. Stars and stripes pendant hung static in breathless zephyr. Press wagons queued curbside. Our saga seized civic gaze as paramount kin treason. Local magnate assays frame own kin. The captions scripted selves. Within chamber 1823, the self-numeral as Alexander's suite. Happenstance akin cosmic jest, I claimed gallery perch. Alexander hunched at accused rostrum in saffron garb and fetters. The tycoon effaced. His lavish vestment bartered for carceral weave. His assured carriage sundered by moons in national hold. All ascend for the revered magistrate Laura Kensington. Victor Langford mounted a test rostrum foremost. Timber quaking with fervor, yet firm in quest. I could brook no blameless soul's torment. He locked gaze on Alexander. The accused devoted moons forging tomes to shunt all penal onus to his elder begetter. Grill assay assayed Victor as vengeful underling. Yet craft proofs overwhelmed. My slate portraits bloomed on chamber panes. Tome succeeding tome retro endorsements. Singular duty shunts. Entity wiles to pin me for offenses unknown till yester. When my stint arrived, I trod a test rostrum on faltering limbs. 70 spans, fronting chamber of unknowns, narrating how my heir essayed my undoing. He essayed not mere coin theft, I avowed to the magistrate. He essayed my liberty's theft, my waning cycle's theft, tendered to national durance. Alexander shunned my gaze through attestation. He fixated the rostrum, shoulders bowed, a fractured soul who'd staked all on wile and forfeited. The scribe's valediction ravaged. The accused essayed to frame his begetter for fiscal offenses, spun moons prep, evinced utter scorn for kin ties sacred. Shield pleader's clemency bid floundered. How shield the unshieldable Alexander Bain? You stand culpable on all 6 tallies of accusation. Magistrate Kensington's timbre bore national sway. Wire guile, fund launder, collusion, stock breaches. Each tally, another cycle of Alexander's span, meted in stone and iron. Kin faith's treason renders this offense singularly vile. The hall decrees 10 cycles in national durance, plus 4 million in levies and amends. Alexander's shoulders heaved, his crown sank to fettered palms. Verity pierced his self-veil at last. 10 cycles. At 38, he'd re-emerge at 48, mid-span and splintered. No clemency in national code. He'd endure every dawn equity exacted. Beyond the hall, scribes hurled queries I unmet. Edward steered me to his auto through lens and mic throng, shielding from civic farce as he'd shielded from writ ruin. How fares your heir's decree? I couldn't frame that equity and lament shared heart space. The felon merited each cycle. The begetter in me yet grieved the heir perished cycles ere this assize. As we motored from civic Chicago toward Evanston, I cast final gaze to the National Hall, then fronted toward uncharted. The moon's post-assize blurred in pragmatic choices. I listed the Evanston stead in May, overmuch anguish in each nook. By June, I'd claimed a modest pondside cot in Madison, Wisconsin, distant enough from Chicago for renewal's breath, nigh enough for Edward's calls. Haul wagons arrived on a sweltering July dawn, ferrying 35 cycles trove toward ambiguous dawns, now 12 dawns hence. I stood on my fresh veranda beholding dawn gild Lake Mendota and Oriate and Russet. "Morning, buddy." The shelter hound lifted from his favored nook by my soles, tail fanning with zeal of one granted reprise. We'd claimed mutual at Madison's Beast Haven 4 dawns post-settlement, twin survivors relearning faith, roast steamed in morn zephyr as I nested in the timber throne, procured from local shaper, unadorned gear for unadorned span. The cot proved humble dual chambers, compact scullery, salon with boulder hearth. Yet each span evoked liberty. Madison morns hushed in modes Chicago disdained. No vehicular choruses, no civic press, mere pond loves on strand, avians heralding fresh dawn, serene stillness permitting lucid thought for the first since the abyss. Mr. Bain, post. The courier, a buoyant dame dubbed Clara, tendered an envelope in known script. Victor Langford's missive bore tidings kindling my first beam in dawns. His vocation quest triumphed a wee advisory in St. Paul, prizing upright o'er ties. Sundry treasons school us on true comrades, he penned. You preserved my rectitude as I aided yours. The pond stretched horizonward, flecked with anglers seizing ideal July climb. Somewhere athwart those tides, folk eked mundane spans, woes scaled in liens and toil termini rather than national accusations and kin shatter. Hail to our hamlet, Mr. Bain, Mrs. Whitaker from adjoining neared with lidded bake, the quintessential borough nod to arrivals. Gratitude, so hushed post-Chicago. That's our allure, tranquility, amiable neighbors, plain fare, she eyed Buddy, who'd neared for assay. Shelter hound, we sheltered mutual. 4 moons of cotspan birthed rhythms akin balm. Dawn rambles with Buddy along littoral. Midspan tasks, mending adrift flaps, seeding a wee plot to burgeon next vernal. Gloaming perusal in hearthside throne. Tomes picked for joy sans trauma flight. The ironmonger's keeper, Tom Riley, emerged unofficial mentor for caught upkeep. Civic lad assaying rustic, he'd quip, yet his lore bountiful, his fellowship prized. Plot thrives, he'd noted yester. Fruits ripe by harvest, trifling parleys on trifles. None here fathomed Chicago. Assizes, heirs turned aliens. I was mere Reginald, the pension drafter lakebound for hush and ease. At whiles I pondered Alexander, 10 cycles yawning like immutable decree. National hold someplace, schooled in bounds and rosters imposed alien. Recalled he our parting parley, minded he 7 winters, beaming o'er our joint aviary like as not. Self-worshippers squander not on remorse. Equity triumphed. Victor unearthed toil with upright souls. I learned renewal at 70 feasible, nigh emancipatory. The Stead's levy yielded frugal surety. Edward called lunar, ferrying writ novelties and erst comradeship. Buddy lolled in noon blaze, then patted cotward for matin. Trifling wants swift sated. We'd both gleaned affection, craved not vain ties. At turns, elective kin outshone vain mishaps. Rising to trail him inward, I surveyed Lake Mendota toward tomorrow. At 70, I unearthed my vigor's depth. At whiles, treason's paramount boon is unmasking self when all else crumbles. Astern, dawn bathed the cot in cordial gleam. Ahead, whate'er beckoned tarried with pond tide's forbearance on strand, as the sun climbs higher over Lake Mendota, its rays tracing a shimmering trail across the serene waters. I paused to reflect. True resilience blooms not in moments of triumph, but in the forge of profound loss. Betrayal may fracture the bonds we cherish most, yet it carves away the fragile, unveiling an inner fortitude we never knew we possessed. What hidden strengths have your own heartaches revealed? Share your impressions in the comments. Let's connect through these shared truths. Pose your questions here. We'll delve deeper together. turning whispers into wisdom. Your engagement lights the path for us all. Subscribe, like, and join the conversation to keep the stories flowing. To uncover the next tale of unexpected grace, simply click the panel to your left. Thank you, from the quiet shores of this new beginning, for walking this road with me.